So hey guys, it's Xaleph again, and we're back on Black Ops 2. And before I get started, let me simply say that yes, I am a whore, and I bought the bacon camo. At first I thought it was disgusting, and then I thought to myself, this is hilarious, why didn't I do this sooner, and why didn't I buy it right away? Well, granted I did buy it right away, and yes, again, I am a whore when it comes to these things. But there's a couple things I wanted to talk about, and I will get to the fact and the idea of DLC camos, but I wanted to talk about something first. I was watching a Final Fantasy IV live stream the other day, and I might, if I can find it, I'll put the link in the description. But the point being is that the streamer admitted that between the two of them, Final Fantasy VI was the technically better game, and his main argument for that was the fact that there was the opera scene. And not having played it in a while, now that I've thought about game design a little bit, I can't say one way or the other how that scene affects things, but I know it was a very pivotal scene in the game. But between the two, he knew that 6 was a better game. But because of the nostalgia goggles, or the rose-tinted goggles, or just nostalgia in general, he could not bring himself to think 6 the game that he prefers. And I thought that I might bring that topic up. And I've said this before, that Final Fantasy VII, if I looked at it now, I would see all the warts, all the flaws, all the things that make that game imperfect, all the things that make that game subpar sometimes. The battle system is clunky, the cutscenes are overdone, even by RPG standards of the time. And it was getting to the point where the art style was too anime-ish, too cartoony, and the story is what really mattered there. But looking back, I cannot for the life of me say to myself that I like any other Final Fantasy better than 7. Because I played it when I was like, I don't know, 8, 9 maybe? And nostalgia is one of the most powerful forces in our minds. And it's weird to think that we might have played Final Fantasy VII or the Ocarina of Time, which I actually played prior to 7, but I still prefer 7 to Ocarina of Time. All of these games that we have seen the superior type of. We have seen games that we know are functionally, story-wise, mechanically, everything about them is better. But we cannot bring ourselves to like another game any more than them. And without being a psychologist or a psychiatrist, I don't have a good reason for that. I don't have a powerful psychological drive theory. No, I don't have any of that. All I know is that it's the way we are and it's the way we're built. That's something that was important to us as children cannot ever not be important to us, positive or negative. And it might just be because those are our formative years when we're making our opinions about the world, and where we are, as the phrase goes, we are sponges for information. We simply exist to absorb as much information as possible so that we might be more functional, realistic, worldly people later in life. But when it comes to games, and games like Final Fantasy VII in particular, those games do actually try to teach lessons. And they try to give us something to base our life around, give us a reason to enjoy something, give us a reason to find something important. And Final Fantasy VII, for me, gave me a reason to value the relationships I had with others, among other things. And it gave me a reason to think about the conflict we have in our lives, but it wasn't something I even thought about back in that time. And I guess this is why these sort of things matter from a nostalgia perspective. Because they are formative, they create our opinions of the world. And as much as we'd like to change them, as we get older, those opinions become harder and harder to change, harder to shift. And you talk to anyone who's 60, 70 years old, and they're not going to change their opinions for the world. They can't and they won't, and they simply find it antithetical to their being to do so. And so we think about these games that made our childhoods fun, and we can't change our opinions because at the time, that was all we had to go on. And because at the time it was all we had to go on, it remains all we had to go on for the rest of time when we reference, when we think about our childhoods. As adults, we can go back and we can say, okay, yes, I've played all these really good games. Yes, I've played all these games that I know are technically and story-wise and functionally superior. But because I had no point of reference at the time, I have no point of reference now that I can relate to that particular period in my life. And so, the game remains important to the extreme. But if I can take it down to its simplest, sort of silliest form, we just like what we had as kids. We like having the ability to just not care about all the jadedness, all the evil of the world, when the world was very good and there was very little bad and we hadn't met all the bastards and sons of bitches the world has to offer. But for the sake of not making this completely philosophical commentary, let me talk about bacon. In particular, the bacon camo. Now, I mentioned that camo challenges in particular are important because they give you something to do and they give you sort of a symbol of status and ability and skill. But DLC camos that you purchase with real money that you didn't earn but you bought, they are a status symbol. They are an economic symbol. They are a symbol that says, I have more money than you, and I have so much more money than you, in fact, that I can afford to buy virtual camouflage for a gun in a Call of Duty game. And I liken this at a very, very, very surface level to the hat trading in Team Fortress 2. Now, the difference here, and the difference here is vital, is that in Team Fortress 2, the hats are tradable, and so the hats themselves have real-world value, as silly as that whole concept is. And more importantly, they are much easier to see, much more easier for other players to appreciate than in Call of Duty, because in Call of Duty, you can't really tell that this guy has a bacon camo on his gun until you pick up his gun and look at it, or you see it on his corpse, or you see it on the ground or something. And in TF2, if the spy is wearing a Washington wig, or the heavy is wearing a Washington wig, then it's very apparent that he's wearing a Washington wig. You can see that, right? And you know that he's probably pre-ordered Bioshock Infinite, or whatever he did to get that hat. And I could harp upon the fact that TF2 has a better art style, that it's more visible all over the place. That I could say all these things, but I'm simply going to say that the DLC camos in Call of Duty are a financial statement for the players who buy them. And more importantly, they are purely selfish on both levels, both the publisher, Activision, and the player. Not only because it's saying, I have more money than you, but like I say, people don't really see your bacon camo, or your graffiti camo, or your party rock camo, unless of course you're a live streamer. They are selfish for you, because you get to run around looking at a gun covered in bacon. But of course, on the Activision's level, it's just, how can we scam these people out of their money? But it was really ingenious to take the concept of the camo, take the concept of, I have something you don't, and monetizing it. So from a business standpoint, it works, it's cruel, it's evil, but damn it, who doesn't just love some bacon?